All right, guys, welcome back to the Wemaxit YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jade, and Africans here. We're going to be previewing the Reggae Girlz versus Canada's super team. If this is a time Jamaica finally get one over the Canadians. So we're going to start with the rosters first. Look at the personals that are missing, and look at the ones that are included to see how strong they are, and then we can come up to our prediction at the second part of this two-part video. How are you doing, Mr. Africans?
I'm doing great. It's good that we get to talk about football on the pitch versus football off the pitch. So precisely that. I'm happy we get to speak, not to diminish any of it. That has to be talked about, but it's great that we get to talk about some football on the pitch here in Canada. And I'm excited to see these two matchups a little bit more trepidatiously than before, but still confident. Still confident.
Oh, all right, no problem. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna start with the Canadian roster and talk about a few of the persons missing. All right.
Mhm.
So let me know your thoughts on this Canadian roster that I'm putting up on the screen now. What you saw about the strengths and weaknesses that we should look out for.
Okay, so it's very similar to the roster they brought to the World Cup. A few changes. Sophie Schmidt has retired officially, so not getting called up, which is a very. It'll be interesting how you replace that. Sophie, throughout her career, was just a midfielder you could use anywhere. If you needed her to play as a holding, she could do that. If you have to go box to box, she could do that. If you needed her to create as a 10, she could do that. So not having that player there does hurt a little bit. I'm wondering how they go about trying to replace that. But then you have a Marie Yazinalidi going in. But let's go through the roster here. So the goalkeepers, the same as the Olympics. I mean, the World Cup. Sabrina D'Angelo, Lysianne Proulx, Kailen Sheridan will be between the pipes more than likely. Center backs, you have Kadeisha Buchanan, Vanessa, Gilles, Shelina, Zadorsky, Sydney Collins. She was on the She Believes Cup roster, but didn't make the roster for the World Cup. So she is familiar to Bev and the system. And Jade Rose, we were looking forward to see her at the World Cup, but an injury up before took her out. And then bringing in a Gabrielle Carl to play in as well. So Gabrielle Carl also there. Ashley Lawrence just had her move to Chelsea. Jade Riviere is actually a late scratch, which means that other fullback position is going to be between either Bianca St. George's, Gabrielle Carl, or a Jade Rose. We did see Jade play on that right side, so it could be something we see her do. Usually, Ashley Lawrence on the left side, then Jade Rose on the right. It's going to be a Jade one way or the other, but I think it's a good rotation of players, different types of players that Bev can look at. In the midfield, again, Marie-Yasmin Alidou, more likely replacing Sophie Schmidt, along with Simia Wujo, Jesse Fleming, Julia Grosso, and Quinn. Quinn's the only holding midfielder, the only CDM on this roster, so their job is going to be very important, but it really will depend on what Jamaica tries to do. Then you have Olivia Smith, who is in that midfield to forward ranks. Bev does like to put her out wide, but Olivia Smith is a 10 by trade who can kind of swap and float in and out to that. So I'm very curious to see what Bev does. She just scored her first goal in Portugal, so congrats to you, Miss Olivia. And then up top, you have Jordan Heidema, Chloe Lacasse, Adriana Leon, Nichelle Prince, Deanne Rose, as we said, is not going to be with the team. Christine Sinclair, Evelyn Vienne. So replacing Deanne Rose, you have the U17, U20, Annabelle Chukwu will be joining it, which on paper, if you look at the recent struggles to score goals, adding another 9 profile makes sense. You need find as many nines as you can. It'll be very interesting in terms of deployment. I think that's my big question looking at this roster. The roster does scream similar, like that 4-3-3 again, but I do wonder in terms of deployment what this means for Bev. Where does she put players? But overall, a solid roster. The names that are coming in with some good form. Marie Yasmin has been playing very well at the beginning of the Portuguese league. And then you have players like Jordan Heidemann, who's continuing her good form, and then Olivia Smith. So it's good some good players were coming in good form. To me, I'm more curious in terms of how Bev deploys, and furthermore, what Lauren Donaldson decides to do to try to exploit some potential Canadian habits we saw at the World Cup.
Okay, great. I have two questions. The first one, how much you think the Chukwu's inclusion will be impressive, or you think that what you think about that one? What you think about the Chukwu's inclusion? Because they dropped down, so like you never had much other players to call upon in your roster or in your overall pool.
See, to me, I think that's a fair question to have. And for me, as much I don't, hey, the player got called. I don't have anything against the player getting called. I do wonder, though, if you have more professional players out there who could have maybe filled the role and were in better form to come in. Now, maybe this reads to me like this is Bev trying to get a player up into this environment to see how they react to it, to getting them prepared for future use within the Canadian national team. But I think it's fair to ask if Chukwu's inclusion on paper, like I said, it makes sense. It's another 9. They struggle to score goals. So you have Haidema, you have Yen, you have Sinclair if you have to play her there. Let's throw in a Chukwu if you need her there, because we haven't been able to really create. And the one thing with Bev is though she has players that she trusts in terms of her substitution patterns, sometimes they're a little bit chaotic. So you could see a Chukwu get into the game depending on how it goes. We saw Allen get into the game when her Auti and Chukwu made it for the Brazil camp at the end of last year. So we saw her wanting to go see those players. But I do wonder, and I do question whether having her there, I mean, will she offer something on the pitch on game day, or will she offer something more so from a training perspective? And I think it's a good experience for the player to be there. But I do wonder if there was maybe a professional that was out there versus the U20, U17 player that maybe they could have got some more out of in terms of a game ready type player. But that's just how I look at it and how I see it.
All right, so this is the roster from the Jamaican Reggae Girlz side. You are in goal, Sydney Snyder, Rebecca Spencer, and Leah Brooks. Leah Brooks is the younger version, just the same in a goalkeeper. And I will agree, the similar style as to what they are doing with Chukwu there. I think they're doing with Leah Brooks to bring her through. Maybe because they have two solid goalkeepers. Rebecca Spence, definitely one of the best goalkeepers in the region, and Snyder is right behind her. So obviously, you know that maybe for incident, Snyder can take over, but Leah Brooks can learn from those two to see if she can continue this trend of strong goalkeepers. So I think I'm okay with the goalkeeping pool right there. All right. Yes. In the defensive department, we have both Allison and Chantel Swaby. In the World Cup, they were impressive. I think they were the ones that set the standards going forward. Yes, Danisha Blackwood, Kanya Plummer, she came in, but I never saw enough of her for me to really evaluate how talented she truly is. Or what form she's on now, because she was out because of some pregnancy or something like that. Yes, Tierney Wiltshire, Tiffany Cameron, and Sashana Campbell. So we do have a one and few. Sashana Campbell, I think, just came back in right there. So that's an added one they brought in right there, the Sashana Campbell inclusion. Let's see. I think that is still a solid defensive lineup right there. In midfield, now you have Vivian Sampson, which I grew. She's very good. She's very good. I like what I saw from her. Drew Spence, Atlanta Primus, Paige Bailey Gill, Adama Lurkin added to the squad. So Sashana Campbell, Adama Lurkin added to the squad so far. So yeah, in midfield might slightly be a little bit light, but we still have players that can play in more than one roles. So I would not say we're gonna have so much problems. You know, I still think it's solid enough to stay compact if Mr. Donaldson chose to go compact. All right. Kadeisha Shaw, Jody Brown, Soleil Washington, Trudy Carter, Matthews, Cameron Simon, and McKenna. Forward line looks solid, and some of these players will be deployed deeper to make up the numbers, because obviously we're playing Canada, which it does not have a good record against. So I more likely think that he's going to work others to dribble from deep to get involved in the attack because you have to secure your defensive shape first. That's what I think he's going to do. So me overall squad could have slightly be better with maybe someone else in midfield, but I still believe that what we have as the rotational players, they can give us a shift. Like the Tiffany Cameron, she can play in defensive low line as a full back or a full wing back, and also give us something on the right midfield and also on the right wing side. So she can play all levels. So, and you have the Soleil Washington can do the same as well. They proved it in the World Cup. So I am not so worried about it, to be honest. I think it's a decent squad to carry out something similar to what he did in the World Cup. But would that be enough? That is my major question. I would have to ask right there. And I would leave that up to the fans to let me know. Is this roster okay enough for you? And the strategy that he carried out the last time, is it enough to get a win over the Canadian team? That is the big question you guys have to answer. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section. All right. So Africans, when you look at this roster, what first came to your mind? You're
If
happy?
it's
Canada will take it, beat us down, or you're a little bit afraid, you know? Yeah. When you see big bad Bunny Shaw.
See, this is the thing, JD. We never got to see that Bunny Shaw matchup when they played in Concacaf W last year. So we were disappointed with that. We never got to see that matchup. And if you're looking at what strengths are versus what weaknesses are, I mean, if you want to say something as bold as Jamaica has held better offensive teams than Canada scoreless in the last calendar year, that's a fair statement to say. It's a very fair statement to say. So if you're Lauren Donaldson, you're probably looking and saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So go in, be solid, steal a goal somewhere, and then go. The question is, will they be able to do that, right? Pragmatically, Canada is fine sitting on the ball. Where they get in trouble is when teams try to pressure them. And I think that's where Lauren will have to make a decision in terms of how much pressure is he going to give to try to maybe get Canada into those uncomfortable situations? Or are they just going to be more comfortable in sitting back and saying, we know we can defend, we know we won't concede many, if at all, so have the ball and then all the best to you? Because the one thing, and I go back to the World Cup, the first game against Nigeria to me was the interesting game for me, because what Nigeria's coach did basically was he varied the different types of pressure that they have. So in spurts, they were able to keep Canada a little bit off kilter. And then when you start to speed up that internal clock, you're not really passing the ball, you're just clearing the ball. And so I'm wondering if Lauren can get this squad to do something like that. But when it comes to Canada,
and that's the problem.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that's the problem. When I'm looking at that, to be honest, how much players we have like the Nigerian players, them? Bunny Shaw, strong. But does she has the pace as a Kanu on the white side? And does Jody has the pace as a Kanu as well? She have the pace and the strength, because that's the difference, you know. They have pace and strength. So I think it's a combination of both, because Ajikaye and Ajikaye, was it Ajikaye? I think so.
Yeah, I think it was
and
that. Yeah.
Kanu, Ajikaye and Kanu, they are both fast and strong. That is one of my gripes with Jodie Brown in the World Cup. I thought that she was still fast enough, but she was weak, you know, on the ball.
Okay.
So that itself can't push back the line. So that is my biggest problem right there. So maybe we might see a change there if we want to emulate what Nigeria did. We might have to see someone else, maybe like a Tiffany Cameron, come forward and play a wide role, and a Matthews play a more wide role and cause a problem, because I think Matthews would be the right one to do that, because she's fast and strong. You get me? So it's possible that they can deploy something like that, but I'm not sure if that's going to be their main target.
It is, and this is why I think Bev more than likely will start Jade Rose as a fullback, because one of the things that caught Canada out a lot was when you bomb the fullbacks forward, than you saw it a little bit you saw it more progressively every game, right? Nigeria was able to do it in spurts. Ireland did it early. Australia, they did it all game long. It was invite the pressure, turn it over, then you have all the space, and then you're playing basically with two center backs trying to defend on a counter. And it was Mary Fowler here, Mary Fowler there. I saw so much of Mary Fowler, so much of it. So it does make you think, what does Bev do to combat that? And I think that's where, if you start Jade Rose there, now you can effectively move, instead of going, you can give Ashley Lawrence more of a green light to advance, but now you have a back three effectively defending. So if you do that, then you have Jade Rose alongside a Kadeisha Buchanan and a Vanessa Gilles. So if that space does get eaten up, you have more of the numbers. You put Ashley Lawrence more into the offense, which allows her to get more crosses in. You allow some overlaps, and now you give some more space to your midfielders on the opposite side, whether it's a Julia Grosso, whether it's a Jessie Fleming, to either interplay with the forwards or try to create from there. I think that will be the interesting thing, which is why I think if I was Bev, at least, I think, and she looks at what happened at the World Cup and says, if there's a player that I would worry about, yes, Kadeisha Shaw is that player, but if there's another low-key player, it's probably Jody Brown, just on the pace and on the counters to eat up that space. How do you defend that? I think that's where you put a Jade Rose out there, and then now you can sit back in the back three, and you don't have to worry about effectively all the space getting eaten up, and then you effectively start to play more of a 3-4-3, even though it's more of a 3-3-1. It's a 3-1-3-3, basically. And I think that's what you do to trying to hit you on that counter from their low block and then their compact.